the BC Resources Coalition, proudly sponsoring the 2020 Candidates Forum, preserving our jobs, our future, our environment. Learn more at thebcrc.ca.
The 2020 Candidates Forum on CKPG is presented by the Prince George Chamber of Commerce. Engage, connect, enhance. Find out what the Chamber can do for you.
Hello and thank you so much for joining us, for tuning in here. My name is Jesse McGowan. I'm with CKPG News, and you are tuned in to the 2020 All Candidates Forum ahead of the October 24th provincial election. Now, right now, we are chatting with the Prince George-Valemount candidates, and I will let them introduce themselves in a moment. But first, a few things to get to. First of all, we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Lheidli First Nation. We're here in Prince George, inside Theatre Northwest. Now, of course, things look a little bit different this year. There are no stands, there are no people in the stands watching tonight, just the crew working the event and members of the campaign staff. Now that, of course, is due to COVID-19 guidelines that our candidates and our staff are respecting tonight. Candidates came in with masks. They're now sitting 6 feet apart to respect social distancing. Those are all things that you will see in a few minutes. Now, as far as what our forum is for tonight, our hope is that these candidates to my left will introduce themselves to you, the voter, and give you a better idea of who you're voting for in October 24th's election. How things will work is that each candidate will have 2 minutes to present an opening statement, followed by a list of questions. For those questions, they will each have 1 minute to respond. If a bell dings, that is their 60-second time limit, and we will move on to the next person. Now, all these candidates have been ordered in a random selection way, and at the end of the evening, they will also be addressing you with a closing statement. Without further ado, we will let you meet the candidates, starting first with Green Party candidate Mackenzie Kerr.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I really want to thank everyone for having this debate tonight, all of the hosts of this. And I do want to acknowledge that we are also on the traditional territory, unceded territory of the Lheidli First Nations, and I'm extremely grateful to reside here. So my name is Mackenzie Kerr. I am running for the BC Green Party to become the next MLA for Prince George-Valemount. I am a forestry student at UNBC. I am almost done my degree with 2 classes left, and I have lived in Prince George for 15 years. Before that, I grew up in the Yukon. I am very passionate about sustainable forestry, and that is something that I really want to focus on during this election. We have seen party policies put first over the last 19 years, and I really want to focus on creating a long-term sustainable forest industry that is not short-term profit focused. So I also want to highlight that the Green Party is based on science and evidence-based policy. That needs to come first when we're dictating the policies that we're creating in our province. So I'm extremely grateful to be here tonight. And I want to thank everyone again for inviting me and all of the candidates for coming to participate in democracy. And I hope everyone watching tonight gets a little sneak peek into what we want to focus on and what is important to us. And what is important to me is accountability in government. And that's what Greens can bring to the table. I'm extremely proud to run for the Green Party of BC and bring forward science-based policies and accountability to government, because the more Green seats we have in the legislature, the more progressive policies we can put forward and make sure that we're moving in the right direction towards a new economy and moving our way off of fossil fuels into a economy and a future where everyone is put first, and it's not just profit-driven, it's long-term and sustainable. So thank you again, and I hope that I can answer your questions this evening. If not, we can follow up later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to NDP candidate Laura Parent.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm really looking forward, and thank you for hosting this forum. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lheidli, as well as acknowledging the governance processes of the Lheidli. Ultimately, I'm here because you need security and stability. This election is about where we come from, where we're going, and our security as we work through this rapidly evolving pandemic together. I'm ready to advocate for every person, regardless of your income, age, or identity. It's clear that we can't afford 4 years of BC Liberal cuts and healthcare shortages, especially when our most vulnerable people, our seniors, are at risk. I know you love and care for your family, and I want to help you do that. That's why the BC NDP are investing in 7,000 new healthcare positions in assisted and long-term care facilities. We're doing this as we continue to fight against COVID-19, and this is just a small example of the way that we're putting you and your family first. We're starting to see some of those changes now. Just a few weeks ago, it was announced that UHMBC will be getting a new surgical tower, and I'm so excited about that announcement. That's something that's going to benefit us right here in Prince George-Valemount. The BC NDP cares about people who are left behind. Policies like free prescription birth control, $10 a day childcare, and family COVID-19 benefits are just small ways that we're putting you and your family first. But we can keep this momentum going. We need a stable, reliable NDP government that has you and your family in mind. Unlike other candidates, I can dedicate my time to my constituents and bring a new, refreshing energy to the role. Together with courage, compassion, and kindness, we can bring a new era to Prince George-Valemount. The Liberal record is clear: hidden scandals, disastrous crown corporations, and countless cuts. Here, that means 13 schools closed and 10,000 healthcare workers laid off. The North can't afford a Liberal representative who can't advocate for your needs like you deserve. When you go to the polls on October 24th, vote NDP, vote Laura Parent, and take a step forward. For the North, for your family.
All right, next we go to BC Libertarian candidate Sean Robson.
Hello, I'm Sean Robson for the BC Libertarian Party. Thank you for having me here, everybody. I want to start by saying that most of the programs and ideas of moving away from fossil fuels are not possible. Fossil fuels generate everything we live in and everything we do day in and day out. That's a fallacy. BC Libertarian Party is going to privatize as much as possible. The point is to manage yourself and be responsible for yourself. That's what's the most important. The more we take on as a government, the less responsibility we have as an individual. That's the most fundamental, important aspect of our lives, is being responsible for ourselves. The Libertarian Party will reduce taxes and reduce regulations. We will end ICBC totally. We'll get rid of the sin taxes, the carbon tax, gone. And I think it's really important that we start to recognize that the more we tax, the more programs we put in place, the less likely that these programs will be successful, and the less likely that a positive, vibrant future for our future generations is possible. We need to reduce as much government as possible and move in a different direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Finally, Liberal candidate Shirley Bond.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I want to thank the organizers of the event tonight, including the Chamber of Commerce, the media that have made this event possible. I too want to recognize that we're on the traditional territory of the Lheidli-T'enneh, and because we're talking about the riding of Prince George-Valemount, we also need to recognize the Simpcw First Nation. I want to thank the other candidates who have put their names forward. It takes a lot of courage and passion about the place that you live to put your name on a ballot. I am a lifelong Northerner, and I am extremely passionate about the place that we call home. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is my record of public service. You know, if you stop and think of where we are today, we are facing the impacts of a global pandemic. We have a declared provincial state of emergency. We have an opioid crisis, and we also have the economy in turmoil. And where are we tonight? We're sitting on a platform when we should in fact be dealing with the issues in the legislature of British Columbia. Very few, if any, people wanted to find themselves in an election campaign as we speak. But we are where we are. And I can tell you that the riding of Prince George-Valemount is diverse. It is geographically large. It is over 30,000 square kilometers. It is a combination of urban and rural communities, small populations, but all of them having the same needs and desires for excellent health care, for roads that serve us, making sure that small businesses can survive. So tonight we need to talk about those issues. Prince George-Valemount is an exceptional place. I'm deeply connected to the people and to this riding. So I look forward to the discussion and the dialogue with other candidates tonight.
All right, thank you all. We'll move into our question period now. Our first question is on the topic of economic recovery. A reminder, Ms. Kerr, you will be answering first. 98% of business in BC are small to medium-sized. Surveys have indicated that more than 42%, that number should be 25%, will not return post-pandemic. What would your government do to assist businesses and the economy through the recovery process?
Sure, thank you for the question. It's a great question. It's incredibly important. COVID-19 has thrown a wrench in everything, and we need to make sure that we are supporting small businesses and everyone that has a job in this riding and now doesn't have a job because of the way that we have created this boom and bust economy. We need stability in our riding to make sure that we have long-term jobs. So the Green Party wants to focus on small businesses. We want to commit $300 million to create a 6-month rent subsidy for small businesses, and for qualifying businesses cover 25% of rental costs. We need to be taking drastic action right now to make sure that these businesses can survive through the winter, because we have seen how impactful COVID-19 and other things like this can impact our communities. So we need resilient communities. And that's why I believe that creating a long-term stable economy in our riding is very important.
All right, Ms. Parent, you're next.
Thank you. We all know that this is such an important question. Small businesses make up the backbone of our society. We know that the BC Liberal record is clear by giving tax cuts to large corporations, and that just simply won't do when so many of our businesses are at risk. When we first formed a government in 2017, we cut the small business tax rate, so now it's one of the lowest in the country. As we move forward and we work through the disastrous effects of this pandemic, we need to ensure that people are employed, taken care of, and our businesses are secure and safe. In order to do so, the BC NDP has committed $300 million for small businesses in our economic recovery plan. This is on top of the additional business supports that are already in place. Similarly, we've provided $700 million in tax relief to small businesses, and we look forward to furthering these other opportunities, whether that means cutting PST on small business BC hydro rates or taking other actions. It's about making sure that businesses are safe.
All right, Mr. Robson.
Where's the money going to come from for all these programs, for all this funding? It's going to come from the small businesses. 25% are already failing. Taking money from them is not going to solve this problem. It's not going to boost our economy. It's not going to stimulate anything. Reduce taxes, reduce regulations, get government out of the way. That's the plan. That's what we're going to do. That's it.
And Ms. Bond.
Well, certainly we do know that the small businesses drive the economy of British Columbia, and 98% of businesses are considered small businesses. And what we know and what we have heard is that they need help now. They need an immediate response and a dramatic response. So we've made a commitment to eliminate the PST for a year and then reduce it to 3% in the subsequent years as businesses recover from the impacts of the COVID pandemic. We're also going to eliminate the small business income tax of 2%. We know that we need to reduce regulation as well, and so we're going to look at where smart regulation is appropriate related to health and safety. But let's be clear, small businesses need help, and they need it now.
All right, we'll move on to our next question. It has to do with resources and BC being seen as a jurisdiction open for business. If elected, would your government implement a process with clear, certain timelines and practical deliverables in order to advance permitting and approvals for resource development and export infrastructure? Ms. Parent, we start with you.
Thank you. That's such a good question, especially here in northern BC, where we know our resources are critical. Throughout the BC NDP's term, we've done a lot of things that have shown our commitment to the resource sector in northern BC. So whether that means looking at our new mines or looking at forestry, these are all issues that are critical. At this time, I can't give a particular timeline on what a regulating or permitting process looks like, but it's clear that we need to continue to ensure that our businesses can operate under a healthy and effective way. So to do that, we are looking at balancing our biodiversity, because we all know that that's one of our greatest assets here in northern BC in particular, with the need to move forward with our businesses and our industry. So by taking a balanced approach and engaging with local First Nations on a government-to-government basis, local businesses, scientists, and experts, we can ensure we're doing the best thing for our resources.
And Mr. Robson?
The BC Libertarian Party doesn't have a plan for the permitting that I have been able to find in our platform. But again, the reduction of regulations and the reduction of taxes, allowing the individual and the companies to do what is necessary within our province, and especially within Prince George-Valemount, will generate what is necessary for our communities. Thank you.
Ms. Bond?
Well, if we want to restore confidence and rebuild British Columbia, we absolutely have to have clear and certain timelines when we look at major project development in British Columbia. And in fact, we have a major project underway in Prince George-Valemount as we speak. I have always been a strong supporter and advocate for getting to yes on major projects, but it isn't a matter of whether it's the economy or the environment, it's a matter of both. We need to develop the resources that British Columbia has been blessed with. We need to move forward and create a certainty in this province that would attract investment and make sure that people are prepared to come and invest either inside or from outside the province. It's about job creation, it's about getting to yes, and it's about doing that in an environmentally responsible way.
And finally, Ms. Kerr.
So thank you for the question. I think resource development is so important in the North to talk about how we can do it in a better way. We have seen the history of what that looks like now with closed mills, and you were talking about exports. I want to talk about local jobs and opening value-added specialty mills and keeping our jobs local instead of exporting things like our raw logs. So we need to be focusing on how we can create local jobs in our community, balance natural resource extraction and environmental issues and Indigenous government to government, like Laura said, relations, because right now what we see with instituting UNDRIP but then raiding Wet'suwet'en territory, we're not seeing the words turn into actions. So we need to actually take this seriously and think about a way moving forward how we can do this correctly.
All right, we have another resource question, and Mr. Robson, you will be answering first on this one. Global economists have identified our resource sectors as the pathway to economic recovery. If elected, how will your party support our forestry industry?
Reduce taxes and reduce regulations. That's where it starts. If we can't get the government out of the way of allowing the individuals in our communities to produce the jobs, to produce the resources, and manage them effectively, then no matter how much we spend, it's not going to matter. So like I've been saying from the start, taxes and regulations, they've got to be cut. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to Ms. Bond.
Well, forestry will always play a critical role in the economy of British Columbia. We'll have a forest industry and a forest sector, but it's going to look different. We need to recognize that. And one of the first things we want to deal with is an antiquated stumpage system. We want to make sure that it is actually, that we look at dealing with that, more market-driven. We're going to look at how we add value to forest products in British Columbia. One of the things we're also committed to doing is bringing in legislation that would protect the working forest. We know that men and women today want to be sure that there is a future for the forest industry in British Columbia. We've committed to looking at planting more trees. We need to look at the mix and the species of how and where we do that. But it's critical that the forest industry be sustainable. It will always be a part of the economy of British Columbia, and we need to make sure that we do what we can to support the industry.
Ms. Kerr, you're up.
So as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm studying forestry at UNBC, and although I haven't been working in the bush for 30 or 40 years, I've been going to school long enough to see that what we're doing currently is not sustainable. And we need to make sure that we're moving forward in a way that makes sure that our forests are here 100 or 200 years down the road, not short-term profit driven. So we need to ban logging old growth forests. We need to ban exporting raw logs and keep our jobs local, and we need to stop spraying glyphosate by just creating pine monocultures that are making us vulnerable to forest fires and pine beetle outbreaks. We need to make sure that we have a sustainable forest industry, and that's something I'm extremely passionate about. We have great examples of Indigenous-led forestry, community forests and co-ops that are moving us in the right direction, and we need to be supporting those as much as possible with real policy based in science.
And Ms. Parent.
Thank you. We all know that the forestry industry in northern BC has struggled over the past few months. This is a struggle that has been long in the making. For 16 years, the BC Liberals neglected our forests, and reports as early as 2012 show that the Liberal caucus was aware of the problems in the forestry industry. This means that they changed the Forestry Act. There was no plan to address pine beetle shortages and no long-term stability there. As we move forward, the BC NDP knows that we need to make structural changes to ensure that local entrepreneurs have access to BC's product. And we need to make sure that there's that balance between protecting our biodiversity and ensuring that our industry is met. We all know how critical jobs are and how critical jobs are to our families. And we need to make sure that that is considered as well. So as we move forward, maintaining that balance, working with First Nations, and ensuring that people are kept working.
All right, moving on to the topic of connectivity. And for question 4, Ms. Bond, you will be responding first. COVID-19 has exposed numerous challenges in rural and remote BC as it pertains to connectivity for business and healthcare. Knowing that these issues will continue for some time, what would your government do to increase access and availability to broadband internet and telehealth options?
Well, certainly we've had to face the impacts of COVID-19, and it is very challenging, and especially in rural and small communities, many of which are in Prince George-Valemount. We need to continue to work on reaching the last mile when it comes to cell phone and internet service. You know, I've driven that highway many, many times as the former MLA, and I can assure you there are still sections of highway where you cannot get cell phone coverage. And having adequate broadband is essential from an economic and healthcare perspective. So we are going to continue to invest and work to close the gaps that exist. It's essential for not only telehealth, but also the economy. You need to be able to tell the world your story. You need to be able to attract investment, and having adequate broadband coverage is absolutely essential to that.
Ms. Kerr?
Connectivity in rural communities, especially in the Prince George-Valemount riding, is a huge problem. We drove it just last weekend to go visit McBride, Dunster, and Valemount, and there was quite a few spots where there was no service. So I think that this also impacts, as you said, healthcare and the economy. It also impacts education, because a lot of students are now learning online, and if they don't have access to internet at their home, they're having to transport to the school and safely operate in a COVID-friendly way their education. So I think that this is incredibly important, and the Green Party is extremely supportive of supporting small rural communities, making sure that they have connectivity, because it has for so long disproportionately affected rural communities and Indigenous communities. So for the safety of people traveling the highway, education, healthcare, reaching the services that we need in these communities, we need serious action on this.
Ms. Parent?
Thank you. Connectivity is so important, especially in our constantly changing world. As the BC NDP, we've made huge gains in this area over the past 3 years of our term by expanding our services across northern BC. This is especially important when we consider issues like the missing and murdered Indigenous women genocide that continues to affect us right here in Prince George-Valemount. So I'm equally excited about different ways that we can move forward with that, as well as what this means for healthcare and bringing our healthcare to our small facilities and to our rural areas. We know with this pandemic that it's clear people heal best at home, and keeping people in their local communities and local neighborhoods is best. So yes, like I said, I look forward to expanding this service and expanding our telehealth options throughout the rural centres of northern BC and Prince George-Valemount.
And now to Mr. Robson.
Connectivity and internet service throughout the province should remain in the private sector. It shouldn't be handled by government. These aren't programs that we should be dealing with tax dollars. Let the private sector do its job. Let the entrepreneurs in those areas do what they want to do and bring as much connectivity and as much internet service as possible to these communities through local entrepreneurs.
All right, so that wraps up our first half of questions. Thank you guys for your answers. We will step away for a quick break and be right back with the 2020 All Candidates Forum.
The BC Resources Coalition, proudly sponsoring the 2020 Candidates Forum, preserving our jobs, our future, our environment. Learn more at thebcrc.ca. We now return to the 2020 Candidates Forum, proudly sponsored by the BC Resources Coalition, preserving our jobs, our future, our environment. Learn more at thebcrc.ca.
The 2020 Candidates Forum on CKPG is presented by the Prince George Chamber of Commerce. Engage, connect, enhance. Find out what the Chamber can do for you.
Welcome back, and thank you once again for tuning in to the 2020 All Candidates Forum ahead of October 24th's provincial election. Right now we are with the candidates for Prince George-Valemount, and we're halfway through our questions for the forum. So we'll pick back up with question number 5, and this deals with tourism. The tourism industry, especially retail and restaurant businesses, have been hit particularly hard during the pandemic. How does your government plan to assist the ailing industry? And we'll start with Ms. Kerr.
Sure. That's an incredible question, because right now, as we travel across the riding and meet with small businesses and especially tourism businesses, they're saying to us, I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive the winter. So the Green Party wants to retool the provincial grant program to focus on supporting small tourism operators and accelerate the timeline for accessing grants. We need to make sure that they have the immediate help that they need right now so that our cultural centers and our arts centers can stay open throughout the COVID pandemic over the winter when tourism can slow down. So we need to make sure that they are able to survive, and we can work with the feds to establish a repayable loan for the hospitality industry, including hotels, so that we can make sure that people are able to come into these communities and the hotels can stay open as well. So we need to make sure that the tourism industry is thriving, and we have lots of opportunity for that in the Prince George-Valemount riding, and I'm excited to help make it flourish.
Ms. Parent?
Thank you. Tourism provides such a vital new life to Northern BC and to Prince George-Valemount, and it's really critical that we consider this as we move forward throughout this pandemic. One of the things that we as the BC&DP are looking at is the different ways that we can engage our tourism industry to diversify and keep people working and keep putting people first. So this could look like helping shift our guiding outfits to changing different regulations on things like restaurants. Already the BC&DP has put restrictions on the amount of fees that third-party delivery companies can charge local businesses and restaurants. So that's just one small way that we can make a big impact on the bottom line for our small businesses and our small industries. We need to continue supporting our tourism industry, our hospitality industry, and our cultural sectors to ensure that those people and those workers are supported.
On to Mr. Robson.
Repeat the question, please.
So we're dealing with tourism. The tourism industry, especially retail and restaurant businesses, has been hit particularly hard during the pandemic. How does your government plan to assist the ailing tourism industry?
By ending the restrictions altogether. BC Libertarian Party is not interested in maintaining the restrictions for COVID-19. We feel we've reached a point where we can open back up completely. No more social distancing, no more masks. And then again, by reducing your taxes and your regulations, everybody's going to want to go out and eat and see movies. You know, when they have the extra cash, they're going to spend and they're going to save, and that's going to bring back more tourism. We're going to move around, we're going to have a lot of fun, and that's the plan.
And Ms. Bond.
Well, tourism is a significant economic driver in British Columbia and in Prince George-Valemount, and they have been decimated as a result. Many of them have been decimated by the impacts of COVID-19. And as I said earlier, they require help and they need it quickly. So that's why reductions and eliminations, for example, of taxes makes a difference for those small tourism businesses. And if you look at Prince George-Valemount, whether it's the bike park or the Swiss bakery or whether it's B&Bs, whether it's the brewery, all of those important tourism opportunities help to diversify the economy, and that's what this is about. It's making sure that we're not completely reliant on the resource sector, although that's an important part of our economy. Tourism is an important economic driver. They need help. We need to reduce taxes, look at regulation, and continue to tell the story about the riding we all want to represent so that we can attract and support those small businesses.
Thank you. Our next question deals with getting youth to work. If your party is to be elected, would there be a comprehensive youth entrepreneurship strategy introduced? For this question, we start with Ms. Parent.
Thank you so much. That's an excellent question. We know that youth are so important to our future. One of the things that the BC NDP is committed to doing is ensuring our education rates of our youth remain high. So we're reducing barriers to doing that. For example, we already have taken away interest on student loans. We've made adult basic education free and fully accessible. We've eliminated tuition for youth in care, and we've expanded the BC Access Grant. This means that youth can get more opportunities, can learn, and can contribute to our industry sector in the most productive possible way. We will continue to support youth initiatives. We will continue to support apprenticeship training seats and business mentorship seats to keep our youth going. Youth power this future. I'm so pleased to be one of 2 youth candidates here. The BC NDP team ourselves is running 6 youth candidates across the province, and I can't wait to see what all the future youth of tomorrow will do.
All right, Mr. Robson.
Well, it starts with getting the government out of the way. And then from there, allowing the individual to save as much as possible to actually start their own business with their own hard-earned money and move forward from there. In our platform, there's no comprehensive plan that's going to tax these people so that you have an opportunity. Go to work hard, earn your money, and then start your business from there. That's how everybody gets going. Most people get going, and that's how some of the most successful businesses have gotten going. So again, reduce the taxes, reduces the regulations, get the government out of the way, spend and save as you earn.
Ms. Bond?
Well, certainly one of the things we need to do is give young people in British Columbia the opportunity to dream big and be successful. And we are looking at a number of ways of supporting youth, and certainly entrepreneurship. There are many excellent organizations in Prince George and of course across the province that already partner with schools to talk about how we explore the area of entrepreneurship for young people. But we need to look at choice. We need to look at options and supporting young people in a variety of pathways. We're also going to look at programs like increasing trades opportunities in schools. We need to allow young people to explore as many options as possible. And we have an innovative, incredibly skilled workforce in British Columbia, so it's very natural that we should be thinking about encouraging young entrepreneurs in our province.
And Ms. Kerr.
So I'm very excited about this question because also being one of the young candidates, this is exciting to me. I'm on the BC Greens Youth Council as well, so I get a seat at the table to help influence the policies that the party put forward. And as an MLA, I would love to advocate for these at every opportunity. I think it's incredibly important to get young people back to work again. I was temporarily laid off all summer at a restaurant industry, and so I had to find another job, and it paid low. And so it's really hard right now, and especially with our housing affordability crisis, rent is through the roof, and people are having a really hard time paying their bills, especially young people. So our youngest MLA in BC is 35 years old. I think people need a representative that is young just like them, that knows the important things that need to be brought up in the legislature, and I am hoping to be one of those young MLAs that is elected this time to bring these issues forward.
All right, we'll move on to our next question. It's pertaining to childcare. Would your government improve access to childcare by introducing measures to strengthen private and nonprofit options while using public options to fill the gaps? For this question, we start with Mr. Robson.
No, absolutely not. Again, private sector as much as possible, entrepreneurs and those who want to invest and get involved, but no more money from taxpayers to subsidize these programs. It's enough. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked for every government that's ever tried these programs. It ends up being the same thing over and over again. They need more. We need more. We need more. And that's not a solution. So no, our BC Libertarian government would not try to initiate any more programs for childcare. Ms.
Bond?
Well, thank you. And childcare is an important part of revitalizing and growing the economy. We know that if parents or individuals want to be in the workforce, one of the things that matters most is that their children are well taken care of. And we support a mix of options for parents. We have a plan that is actually a stepped plan. And so if you have a household income under $65,000, you will receive immediately $10 a day daycare every every household income under $65,000, and it would work its way up to $30 a day for under $125,000. We know also that one of the biggest challenges is actually for parents to find those spaces, so we will create an online provincial application process that would help simplify actually locating your childcare space. I've heard from many, many families in our riding for whom actually finding the space is an issue.
All right, we'll move to Ms. Kerr.
So the evidence is showing us that the solution to this and the science-based policy to this is including our childcare in our public education system. It shouldn't be dictated whether or not your child gets to access early childhood education if you can afford it. This should not be for people that can afford daycare and early childhood education that is thousands of dollars a month, over $1,000. So I think that we really need to make sure that we have enough spots, we have enough availability. We need to be looking at alternatives like outdoor early childhood education programs. There's a great one that just opened in Prince George. We need to be looking at these creative out-of-the-box solutions to make sure that our children are lifelong learners, they're getting the best treatment, and it's not dictated on how much money you have. We need to include it in our public education system.
And Ms. Parent.
Thank you. We know that childcare affects more than just children or their families. When families have more money as saved as a result of their childcare costs, that can be spent and rediverted back into our economy. The BC NDP supports a mixed plan of both private and public daycare, with the emphasis on opening those spots up to make them easy and accessible and safe, first of all. It's not helpful for anyone to have unsafe or poorly licensed childcare facilities, and part of that is moving towards a universal $10 a day childcare program. This makes sure that moms, dads, parents of any gender can be working or can be home for their kids and can do what they think is best for their family while preventing financial barriers from stopping that.
All right, and we'll move on to our final question of the night. This has to do with Building BC. So all parties have noted infrastructure projects as a significant contributor to our economic recovery. In your opinion, what Northern BC infrastructure projects could provide the greatest economic impact to our region? And Ms. Bond, we start with you.
Well, thank you. And we've announced what would amount to the largest infrastructure investment program in the history of British Columbia. $8 billion additional dollars over the next 3 years for a total of $30.9 billion. From my perspective, it's absolutely essential that we have quality healthcare options. So our plan does include the University Hospital of Northern British Columbia, ensuring that there are cardiac care options and appropriate surgical opportunities here in Prince George. For me, one of the things that I'm most concerned about are northern roads, making sure that we have investments in rural roads. We are going to fast track the completion of the Caribou Connector. It's essential that we can move people and goods up and down that corridor. So we are committing to make record investments in infrastructure. It creates jobs and it rebuilds the economy. It gives us a chance to rebuild British Columbia.
All right, Ms. Kerr.
So the green recovery can give us thousands of jobs, more jobs than we can have in the oil and gas and fossil fuel industry, and keep people working and make sure that we can keep a healthy environment for long term. So we want to end subsidies for the oil and gas industry and direct all of that money into the green recovery. If we could use the $1 billion that the NDP have spent on oil and gas subsidies over the past 3.5 years, that's 79% higher than the BC Liberals were subsidizing the industry. We could use that to actually fund a green recovery and help small businesses and small entrepreneurs that want to invest in renewable energy, making sure that people can have access to affordable electric cars and new projects in the north. We need to be talking about hemp and solar, geothermal. The opportunities are endless. We just need the political will.
Ms. Parent?
Community infrastructure is vital to life in northern BC. Whether this means accessing our services or transporting ourselves between our communities, these are things that people of Prince George-Valemount rely on. The NDP is committed to adding an additional $3 billion per year to improve our infrastructure in northern BC. But the focus of this isn't just throwing money at empty industries. It's at ensuring that public projects are built to benefit local people. This means hiring local companies, hiring local people, and bringing on local workforces to complete these things. So that looks like roads or transportation methods, different facilities across northern BC. I'm so pleased that there's been hospitals and additions to hospitals all across the north. And as I said, right here in Prince George, we have UHMBC's new surgical tower, as well as other facilities in smaller and rural areas. So to sum all that up, our focus is expanding our infrastructure allowances with a local focus.
And finally, Mr. Robson.
So again, in our platform, it doesn't specifically affect or address infrastructure, but as a libertarian, I can tell you that a lot of privatization would occur. Again, it's the most efficient way in order to achieve these projects. People will invest when and where they need to. Using tax dollars to do all of this all the time, every time, is just going to create a larger and larger burden on all of us. It's never going to end as long as you vote for somebody other than a BC Libertarian. The infrastructure in BC is important, and it should be maintained and taken care of appropriately, but spending billions upon billions of dollars is not an answer and is not going to achieve what we want. Thank you.
All right, so thank you all four of you for addressing all these different questions. Our final item of the night is your closing statement. You will have 2 minutes, and we will do them in the reverse order that we did our opening statements, starting with you, Ms. Bond.
Well, thank you very much. It's been interesting and to listen to the candidates present to the voters of Prince George-Valemount their vision, their plan, and their ideas. You know, we live in very challenging times, and as we look ahead, we know that we're not through those difficult times yet. So when I think about the riding of Prince George-Valemount, I think it's essential that what the voters want and need and deserve is a strong voice, someone who will take their concerns to Victoria to make sure. This is a very large province and it's very diverse, and we need to make sure that we have an experienced MLA with a proven track record who can deliver on behalf of the people who live in Prince George-Valemount. As I said earlier, you know, this is an election that most British Columbians didn't expect or didn't want. So what I do want to encourage people to do is to ensure that they take part in the democratic process. You've heard clear options laid out tonight for from the candidates in Prince George-Valemount. But the most important thing is to ask you to do your job, to participate by getting out, by voting either in the advanced polls or on election day. It's such an important privilege and opportunity in British Columbia to be able to participate. So I would encourage you to get out, to vote. And I think that as we move ahead, we need a strong, experienced voice to continue to speak aggressively and proactively on behalf of the constituents of Prince George-Valemount.
All right, we'll move to Mr. Robson.
I just want to say thank you to CKPG and Jesse and the candidates for being here. It's been very interesting. This is my first time. Voting for BC Libertarians is probably your best option if you want freedom. If you want to be responsible for yourself, we are the party for you. As you've heard, everybody's talked about spending billions upon billions of dollars, and I personally believe this is a constant wrong move that doesn't fix the problem to start with. Stimulating the economy never ends up stimulating the economy. And we all end up right where we are right now in a situation like this where our economy is in the dirt and our lives, half of our lives are in ruin. And that's one thing that the BC Libertarian Party really wants to accomplish, is a separation of economy and government. The government's job is not to be involved in the economy just because they wish and will it. Get them out of the way, and you guys will have the opportunity to do what you do best. Thank you.
Ms. Parent?
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking all of my fellow candidates here for their respectful dialogue. I've really appreciated the chance to be up here, and I really encourage people at home to go and vote, either with your mail-in ballot, advanced polls, or on voting day on October 24th. At the end of the day, I'm here because you need security and stability. Prince George-Valemount needs an MLA that can sit alongside the government and ensure that your voices are being heard, not an empty opposition seat. I challenge everyone to ask themselves in the riding what biggest challenges or struggles that they've faced over the past 16 years or even 20 years. Is it closed schools? Is it inaccessible services? Is it shutting down forestry offices? Whatever the challenge may be, we need to remember that my BC Liberal colleague was either in on the problem or ineffective in helping it during her 16-year term as a cabinet minister. We can't have these patchwork solutions anymore. That's why the BC NDP and John Horgan and our team are in it for you and in it to help you. We're seeing those changes now and we're continuing to see them across our province. BC is one of the leading economies in the country and I hope it continues that way. The past 3 years have already been an excellent indicator as to where that economy is going. Because this is about you. This isn't about any of us here. So remember, October 24th, vote Laura Parent for the BC NDP.
And finally, Ms. Kerr.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you to everyone who organized this evening and all of the candidates for participating in our democratic process of running for office. It definitely is a challenging and rewarding experience. So I am very grateful to be able to run for the BC Green Party, and I'm here to do politics differently. I'm really fed up with the political games that we see of mudslinging back and forth, and I really want to focus on the solutions that people care about. We have overlapping crises right now. We have the COVID pandemic, we have an opioid crisis, we have the climate crisis underneath everything. The status quo isn't going to take us in the right direction anymore. We need an MLA in the Prince George-Valemount riding that is ready to challenge the old way of doing things and move us forward. We have seen the boom and bust economy of what's happened in the north with our natural resources, and I'm extremely passionate about creating a forest industry that is here for the long term, making sure that we're moving towards a green recovery, making sure people are employed and their jobs are not based on a dying fossil fuel industry. The potential is there. We need the political will, and we need an MLA that is ready to fight for those to help us move forward, and we need an MLA that also doesn't have a whipped vote. The Green Party is able to vote for what's best in our riding and not on party policy because we don't have to toe the party line. So the Green Party is an amazing option this time. I'm incredibly proud to run under a leader like Sonia Furstenau, who has shown us last night in the leaders debate how you can be a compassionate leader. She has talked about how we need a secure, affordable and sustainable province, and that's what I can bring you as your next MLA. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight, and we need an MLA that you can trust to hold the other parties accountable. Thank you.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of our evening. Thank you, all four of you, for your preparation in tonight and also your care for the different issues that the North faces. So now the job turns over to you. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And now make sure you vote October 24th or before. Cast your vote in the provincial election. Thank you once again for tuning in, and have a great night.
The BC Resources Coalition, proudly sponsoring the 2020 Candidates Forum, preserving our jobs, our future, our environment. Learn more at thebcrc.ca.
The 2020 Candidates Forum on CKPG is presented by the Prince George Chamber of Commerce. Engage, connect, enhance. Find out what the Chamber can do for you.